Up and running.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to report out of a closed session item. Clerk, will you please read what we're reporting out on?
We're reporting on a closed session. It's a public employee appointment authority, Government Code Section 54957B1, and it's a General Services Director.
Okay, Supervisor Rutherford moved, Supervisor Royce seconded, and by a vote of 5-0, the board approved the hiring of Daniel Richardson as the General Service Director for a term to begin February 1, 2019. The board, through its CEO and County Council, negotiated an employment contract with Mr. Richardson, which will be placed on a future board agenda. With that, will the clerk please read our 4 p.m. item?
It is public hearing to consider Tuolumne County General Plan. One is a resolution clarifying environmental impact report and adopting the findings and facts. The statement of overriding consideration and mitigation monitoring and reporting plans, and the 2018 Tuolumne County General Plan. And an ordinance amending Tuolumne County Ordinance Code Title 17 to expand the range of economic activities allowed by agricultural land and agrotourism activities or on non-agricultural land.
Okay, before I open the public hearing, a couple little ground rules here that we're going to be going by. Staff will give a report. We'll have public testimony. The public, you don't have to state your name, but you'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and time cannot be transferred to another speaker. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Quincy.
Good late afternoon, Chairman and fellow supervisors. My name is Quincy Yaley. I'm the Assistant Director of Development at the Community Resources Agency here at Tuolumne County. Thank you for having us before you this afternoon, and thank you to the public for coming out to hear this project. I'm going to be giving a brief presentation regarding the general plan and the different components of the project. After that, it will open up as normal, back for board questions to staff. After that, as was mentioned, we will have the public comment portion of the meeting, and the public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and just again, speakers do not need to state their name. Once the public comment portion of the meeting is over, we'll return it back to the supervisors for discussion, and we'll end with a motion. Before we go on any further, I just want to introduce our project team as well as our staff members who are here in the audience. We've asked a number of staff members to come so that they can speak to any technical issues that may be brought up by the public or that the supervisors have questions on. First of all, we have David Gonzalez, the Director of the Community Resources Agency, Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official, Rob Koslevy, Director of Environmental Health, Dan Grossi, TCTC Director, Duke York is here representing the Public Works Department. We have Steve Gregory and Adam Fries from Tuolumne County CAL FIRE. Also joining us tonight will be Kevin Lindo, who is in Land Use Planning from CAL FIRE. Jason Terry is here from the CAO's office, as well as Ryan Campbell. For our project team, to my right is Carlin Dribdahl, Deputy County Counsel. After that, we have Tiffany Wright with Remy, Moose, and Mammy, as well as Mike Parker and Gary Jacobs from Ascent Environmental, who are the authors of the environmental document. The presentation I'm going to give will start with a little bit about the project history, and then I'll talk about the community involvement component of the project. I'll discuss what is a general plan, as well as the proposed revisions to the Title 17 zoning code. We'll talk a little bit about the environmental impact report, as well as the final EIR and the staff comments back on the response to comments. We will end the presentation with the staff recommendation, as well as a potential board action. So a general plan is often viewed as a constitution for a local agency. It provides a core set of values and a common vision for a desired outcome. The California State Legislature requires that a county have a general plan, and the goal of our general plan is to balance growth, conservation, quality of life here in Tuolumne County. A lot of people, when they hear about a general plan, they mostly just focus on things that are related to development or growth, but the general plan is actually much broader and incorporates a lot of other areas of our local life into the general plan, such as how long you may spend in traffic, what sorts of levels of noise you're exposed to, what your neighboring property owners may be allowed to do on their property, the number of parks we have, and how we deal with our natural resources and our cultural resources. So the general plan is actually a very broad document, a very high-level document that incorporates a number of different topics. Another point of confusion we get is that people think the general plan is something that it's not, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this presentation about that. But the general plan is not the zoning code. It doesn't tell you specifically how things can be constructed on a piece of property. It's not our Williams Act requirements, which looks at what can be done on agricultural land that's being protected. It's not a building or fire code, and it's not our county emergency operations plan. The general plan is also not a funding plan, so it doesn't direct specifically how county money is spent. And it's also, most importantly, it's not approval of a specific project. If a person or landowner wants to do a development on their project, there may be additional work that needs to be done in order to get a project approved by Planning Commission or your board. So the general plan started on my side here in 2012, but actually started before that with a lot of committees and things of that nature. But in 2012, the county adopted the regional blueprint, and that sort of set the stage for future growth patterns in the county. In 2013, the Board of Supervisors initiated the official general plan update, and in 2015, a draft general plan and environmental impact report was circulated to the public. At the close of the comment period in 2016, the Board of Supervisors, your board, felt that we needed to do some more work on the general plan and the EIR, and so the project was put on hold until 2018 when we released another draft general plan and a recirculated environmental impact report. The 2018 Tuolumne County General Plan has been broken out into different components in order to aid the reader in understanding what the document means. First of all, we took all the goals, the policies, and the implementation programs. We put that into one document. So if you're looking to determine whether or not a project is consistent with the general plan, that's the only document you really need. We also put together a technical background report, which has information on land uses, natural resources, cultural resources, and things like that. That's the technical information that supports the general plan. But if you're interested, if you're working on a grant or you're doing a report, that's where you would find that information. And lastly, we broke out the community plans. We have 5 community plans here in Tuolumne County, and I'll talk about those in a minute. We broke those out. They are still a part of the general plan, but if you're looking just for information on Columbia or Tuolumne or Jamestown, you would just pull that volume so that you can see those community plans there. The project also includes ordinance code changes in our Title 17 ordinance code. These are generally related to agricultural tourism and agricultural definitions. I'll talk a little bit about that later. The project also includes a recirculated draft environmental impact report. Recirculated is just a fancy name for we're doing it, we revised it. It doesn't mean anything other than we revised it and we put it back out on the street. We call it a recirculated EIR. And at the close of that comment period, we read those comments and did a formal response to comments with additional changes, and that's included in the final EIR. So the Board of Supervisors has a planning committee, and that really served as the steering committee for this project. It was comprised of staff, county staff, elected officials, and community members, and they worked almost element by element on the wordsmithing of the general plan. They looked at it line by line, and also the community plans. And in 2015, when the draft general plan was published, that document included the red lines that committee had done. And so the public was able to see the changes that had been made from the 96 general plan. In addition, during that 2015 planning effort on the general plan and the EIR, there were 3 public workshops that were held. The Board of Supervisors Planning Committee had 10 public meetings. The Agricultural Advisory Committee met and provided input on the project. This is the time when the general plan language was evaluated, whether we should call something senior citizens versus elderly. That's when the true wordsmithing of the document was done. That's also the time when the land use maps were reviewed and changes were made to the land use maps. And as I said earlier, after that EIR and the general plan went through a 60-day public comment period, the board put the project on hold to reevaluate those comments and make some additional changes. So that brings us to what's happened between then and now. And in this most recent 2018 draft general plan, a real effort was put on to reorganize the general plan to make it easier to read for the public. Also, we looked to eliminate inconsistencies between the document. We reformatted the document. As I mentioned earlier, we broke it apart into 3 volumes to also aid in the reading of it. There were some additional land use changes that were made on the land use map, and one of the things we did that was really important was we tracked where we moved policies around. And so if there was a policy that had been in the recreation element and we moved it into the conservation element, in the draft that we put out in August, you were able to see where those policies went to. That way, if a member of the public or an interested stakeholder really wanted to know what happened to my policy, so to speak, they could follow it through the general plan to see where it went. As a part of this 2018 effort to produce the draft general plan, we did do a rigorous community outreach process, which involved meetings with stakeholders and other group representatives. We had 4 information sessions here before your board, setting up the general plan and educating you and the public on what a general plan is and how the public comment period worked. We also had 4 town hall meetings across the county. Those were conducted during the public review period of the EIR. We also had site visits on people's properties and in their neighborhoods with concerned homeowners, and we had meetings in our offices with them as well. In fact, one time we had a stakeholder come in and they said, "I want to meet with you, Quincy, every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock until all my questions are answered." And so we did. We met until all of those individual property owners' questions were answered. And now I'm going to turn it over to my associate, Carlin, who's going to talk a little bit about the general plan some more.
So in 2016, when after the comments were received from the public on the 2015 draft, your board appointed a general plan ad hoc committee, which was comprised of Supervisors Rutherford and Brennan, to develop draft objectives which distilled the board's philosophy as to the purpose of the general plan. In December of 2016, the full board reviewed and endorsed those objectives. These were later refined and condensed into the 3 overarching vision statements that are listed in each general plan element and the 9 objectives that are set forth in the EIR. These vision statements and objectives provided the framework and the lens that county staff and consultants used throughout the process in 2017 and 2018, reviewing the general plan and EIR and comments.
And so I think it's important for you and the public to understand that the general plan in its 2018 draft form really does fit together like a puzzle. All of these pieces interlock to become the general plan, and any future changes to the community plans or any land use maps, those would be considered a general plan change. As I said, we've got the policy document, the technical background report, community plans, and then the EIR, which is basically all of the CEQA required documentation that a general plan needs to go through. One of the things that the state of California tells us is that the general plan needs to address certain topics, and so these are those topics that need to be addressed. The state can title them differently, and a local agency can change the name. So instead of calling it a land use element, we've called it community development and design. It's not the names that are important, it's the content that's required to be in there. A local agency can also decide to adopt additional elements that reflect local character, local needs, or local resources, and Tuolumne County has done that. In the 1996 general plan, there was a number of elements that were added, and in the 2018 general plan, climate change and water supply have been added to the general plan. An important concept in the 2018 general plan, it's not a new concept, but it's been carried forward through various planning documents, and that's this concept of identified communities. The general plan lists these communities out as areas that growth is going to be directed to. It doesn't require growth to occur in these areas, but it provides incentives and consistency with the general plan if that happens. The asterisks up here are the areas where we have community plans that are identified for those locations as well. This is just a screenshot of the Tuolumne County General Plan Land Use Map. You can imagine as a county of our size, it's quite difficult to fit the entire county's land use map on a computer screen. And so I've just excerpted a snapshot of this. The entire land use map is located in the general plan and the technical background report, as well as online. The colors on the map provide guidance as to the different types of general land uses that could occur on a project site. The properties that are green are agricultural, brown are sort of our rural residential areas, 2 to 5 to 10 acre parcel sizes. Yellow is our low density areas. And so kind of like a coloring in on a map, you've got a beautiful mosaic of Tuolumne County and where different land uses are allowed. I had mentioned community plans earlier, and we have community plans for Jamestown, Columbia, East Sonora, and Mountain Springs. A common question I get is, why is there a community plan for Mountain Springs? There's no community there. And there is a community plan for Mountain Springs that was adopted as a part of the approval of that subdivision project. And so even though the project hasn't moved forward, there is still a community plan for that area. Community plans provide local framework that address certain issues, local issues such as maybe setbacks along Turnback Creek. They may address design elements that are in the Columbia and Jamestown plans. They are in a separate volume, but they are part of the general plan. And when we finish the general plan, there's an intent to go back into these community plans and through a community-wide planning effort, update them one at a time so that they can become current. After a general plan is adopted, we go into the implementation phase. One of the first things that staff will be looking at with your board is what are the requirements of the environmental impact reports, mitigation measures. What do we have to do that was required from the EIR? And so that's a good place to start. And this EIR does indicate a number of planning projects that need to be done after adoption. We also work with you on your priorities. Your board priorities set how we implement the general plan. There may be certain priorities that come to head, maybe fire safety, maybe natural resources or cultural resources, and our staff will be working with your board after the adoption to identify those priorities and begin to implement the programs that are identified in the general plan. We work with other agencies. There's a lot of outreach that needs to happen when in putting some of these policies into place, and so we'll be doing that as well. I'd mentioned the community plans, and lastly, there's an intention to do a zoning code update after the general plan is adopted to address some of the ongoing zoning, either vagueness in the zoning code, or there's been some new regulations that need to be adopted into the zoning code, and so once the general plan is complete, staff will be working on that as well. At this point, I'd like to bring up Jason Terry from the County Administrator's Office to talk a little bit about programs that are run by the Office of Emergency Services.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Jason Terry from your Office of Emergency Services. The first thing I wanted to talk to you tonight about is the Hazard Mitigation Plan. I know you're all very aware of it, but I'll do a quick blurb on it. This is a plan that identifies the risk and severity of certain jurisdictional hazards within our communities, including wildfire, including earthquake. This plan is informed by the general plan and informs the general plan. It creates a set of cohesive plans within the county and is related. However, the hazard mitigation plan does take a direct lead on how we approach mitigation within the communities or within our communities. It is reviewed by CalOES, is then reviewed by FEMA, and then adopted into the safety element of our general plan. So behind me, you'll see we have several projects, both current and planned projects, that we have specifically mitigating wildfire within our communities. First and foremost being tree mortality. That's been an ongoing process for the last 2 years. We've conducted over 40 projects, and we are very, very close to breaking the 10,000 mark in trees felled underneath the program. And that's trees that were removed, that were killed by the bark beetle, and presented both a striking hazard and a fire hazard to our communities. After that, you'll see that there's a vegetation management program that we were recently awarded through the CCI grants. This will affect 26 identified roads within our communities, including Old Wards Ferry. It'll include Parrots Ferry, Ferretti Road, Q and Mill Road, a lot of our major roads in our communities, and effectively create shaded fuel breaks along these roads to enhance the safety in these communities. As far as future grants go, we have submitted grants for the coordination and support of implementing Firewise communities in the area, expanding upon our vegetation management program, and then continuing with defensible space program that we were also had a recent award of as well. These actions take place because of the preparedness that we had in our hazard mitigation plan, because we've identified both the risk and probability of wildfire, specifically in this instance, is high. And so it's something that we continue to work on and is integrated with the general plan as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, you know, as I showed that puzzle earlier, you know, there's a lot of other county documents that become referenced in the general plan, and the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan is one of those documents that's incorporated by reference into the general plan. Now I'm going to just talk briefly about the proposed changes to the Title 17 zoning code. One of the two new things is there are two proposed new zoning districts, a 160-acre and an 80-acre minimum parcel size, as well as there are some new definitions that are being proposed. Those definitions help planners provide good guidance to the public. There's also some minor administrative updates as well as agritourism changes. One of those is the addition of allowing commercial events on agritourism properties. That was evaluated in the EIR, and out of the EIR came a mitigation measure to require a ministerial over-the-counter permit for that. And the other thing that's included in the Title 17 changes is a list of best management practices for commercial events on agricultural lands. And the key for those events is that they are accessory and incidental to the agricultural operations on the property. And I'm going to turn it over to Carla to talk briefly about the EIR.
So under CEQA, if there is substantial evidence of a significant effect on the environment from a project, an environmental impact report must be prepared. Because the general plan is a high-level document, the EIR evaluates the broad impacts of the goals, policies, and programs. CEQA requires the county to evaluate the impact of the general plan update to existing physical conditions. In other words, what's on the ground now. The EIR is not a plan-to-plan comparison. The county initially released the draft EIR for the general plan update in December of 2015. After reviewing the comments received, the county determined additional analysis was required and prepared a recirculated draft EIR, which is the document before your board today. The recirculated draft EIR was released on August 27, 2018, for a 45-day public comment period. The recirculated draft EIR includes 6 alternatives to the general plan update, including the no project alternative, which would leave the 1996 general plan in place, the historic structure preservation alternative, which would increase protections for historic resources, the Williamson Act property preservation alternative, which retains the ag designation on all Williamson Act land, and the modified public services alternative, which would include disincentives to development outside of identified communities. The EIR determined that the modified public services alternative was the environmentally superior alternative. In evaluating the potential environmental impacts associated with the implementation of the general plan update, the EIR found the general plan to to not have potentially significant impacts in 13 areas, including air quality, hydrology and water quality, mineral resources, and recreation. The EIR identified potentially significant impacts with regard to biological resources. However, with the implementation of mitigation measures, this impact would be reduced to less than significant. Finally, the EIR identified significant and unavoidable impacts in the areas of agriculture and forestry, cultural and paleontological resources, greenhouse gases, noise, and transportation. Additionally, the EIR identified cumulative impacts related to the loss of farmland, climate change, and transportation. As I stated earlier, the EIR evaluates the impacts of the general plan update to baseline physical conditions. Although these significant and unavoidable impacts were identified for the general plan update, this does not mean that the same or greater impacts wouldn't occur if the 1996 general plan was left in place. As explained in the alternative section of the EIR, the general plan update will have lesser impacts than the no project alternative, which again is the 1996 general plan.
So after the recirculated draft EIR was put out for public comments for 45 days, at the conclusion of that, staff received a number of comments back, both from individuals, agencies, as well as stakeholder groups. And we reviewed those with our consultants. And one of the first things that we do is we compare the suggestions or the proposed changes that are made by the commenter to the project objectives of the general plan update. And that's the first thing we do to sort of gauge whether or not the comment should be considered as a part of, or as a change, or if it doesn't meet the project objectives, that's a reason why it may not be made. In looking at the response to comments, it became very clear that there were 6 major areas that the public had concerns on. And so we did turn those into a list of master responses. And Carla and I are briefly going to go through those with you. These include vertical consistency between the general plan and the zoning code, population projections, agricultural policies, wildlife policies, oak woodland policies, and fire safety. Computer.
Government Code Section 65860 requires vertical consistency within planning documents. This means that the zoning code and all other development policies must be consistent with the general plan. Although the general plan can be adopted with inconsistencies with the county zoning code, Government Code Section 65860 would require the county to then amend the zoning code to resolve these inconsistencies. The government code does not prohibit your board from revising the general plan to create consistency with the zoning code. So this is not a scenario where the tail is wagging the dog. When the general plan update process began in 2013, and actually even earlier than that, your board's consistent direction to county staff has been to avoid decreasing density allowed on any parcels, in other words, downzoning. In general, where vertical inconsistency currently exists for individual parcels, the general plan update revises the general plan land designation if consistent zoning is not achievable or would require downzoning. The Stent Courts area is a perfect example of vertical inconsistency, where zoning consistent with the current general plan land designation is not achievable or would require downzoning. Many of these properties are too small to rezone to a zoning district that would be compatible with their current general plan land use designation. For larger parcels, rezoning to a compatible zoning district would constitute downzoning. As the zoning code provides the more detailed regulations regarding property uses, the allowed property uses in the Stent Courts area will not be changing. As Quincy is so fond of saying, chickens before, chickens after. One additional item to note about the Stent Courts area is that this is not one of the identified communities. As we've stated, the general plan does encourage development within identified communities, so the general plan update does not encourage development within the Stent Courts area.
So the next common theme we saw in responses to the general plan and the EIR had to do with the document's population projections. And the general plan and the EIR are utilizing the adopted and approved population projections that were used by the Tuolumne County Transportation Council in their regional transportation plan, which was a potential population over the planning horizon of 63,243 residents. This is a number that's derived from a number of sources. It's not, we don't look at just Department of Finance or just Census Bureau or one document. We do look at a number of documents to blend that information together, and then we also use modeling to see how that population would occur. And so the number that is in the Tuolumne County General Plan update was vetted by the public during those planning committee meetings. The other important thing to note is that the general plan doesn't mandate or force growth to that population level. What it does is it allows the EIR to provide a conservative analysis of what would the impacts be if growth were ever to reach that level. And if there are, if the EIR does identify impacts, then we look to see if there's mitigation that can be implemented to reduce those impacts. And so, again, the general plan doesn't say that we're going to reach this target population. It just says that if the population were to grow to this number, we've covered that through an environmental impact report. But one of the things that we did find was we looked at building permits issued by the county over the last 10 years, and we did find that the majority of people are settling in either identified communities or near identified communities, which supports the general plan's direction to put future growth in identified communities. And in fact, all of the commercial development in the last 10 years has been located within one of the identified community boundaries. Another master response that we put together looked at comments on the agricultural policies of the general plan. One of the things that became quickly apparent when I started looking at this was that it wasn't necessarily a conversion of farmland in the general plan update, but we really were looking at a redesignation of farmland. And I know that that's a little bit wordy, but a lot of the changes that were proposed in the land use map were done to reflect the either existing zoning on a project site or on a property. I'm so used to saying project site up here, so I apologize. On a property, or they were done to reflect ownership of a property. And so a number of acres were changed to reflect ownership by other public entities. Additionally, several hundred acres were changed because they were zoned timberland preserve zone, and they should have a general plan of timberland preserve zone. And a number of properties were also changed because the zoning was reflective of a 2-acre, a 5-acre, or a 10-acre minimum parcel size, but the general plan was agriculture, which is a larger parcel size. So it was bringing those properties into conformance with their zoning. While the general plan EIR was on the street for the 45-day public comment period, some additional soil information was published by the federal government, and there were some changes made in the final EIR to address that new additional information. Lastly, we received comments on the agricultural tourism policies proposed in the Title 17 zoning code updates as well as in the general plan. And as I'd mentioned earlier, there was a recognition several years ago by agriculturists in the county that they needed to have additional revenue streams to keep that property in agriculture. And so this would be corn mazes or Christmas tree farms and other types of, it could include weddings and other events as well. And this is the idea, is that it's to be incidental to the primary use of agriculture on the property. There are limits on the sizes and numbers of these events, and that's all detailed in the proposed zoning code changes. Another master response that we put together was regarding oak woodlands. We got lots of questions from the public on this. And so the oak woodland policy of how we are going to be evaluating the potential loss of oak woodland on future development projects is located in Implementation Program 16BJ. And the important thing to know is that that program specifies when this policy applies. And it applies if you have a project site, someone's coming in for a discretionary entitlement from the county, and if there is a loss of native oak canopy of less than 10%, on the property, then this implementation program doesn't apply. It only applies to projects that are going to have a greater than 10% loss of oak woodland canopy. And the two thresholds we're looking at really work in two different types of properties. One is if you have a property that doesn't have a lot of oak woodland coverage on it. And so we just use a 10% threshold to say, well, let's say you have 11 or 15 or some lowered amount of oak woodland canopy cover. If you drop below 10% of loss, then that becomes a significant impact and mitigation is needed. It also looks at a property that may have a more dense oak woodland canopy cover, and this would be a loss of any 10%. So if you have a project site that has 80% oak woodland canopy cover, if they were to drop below 70, then that would be a significant impact that we would need mitigation for. So it's kind of looking at two different scenarios of a potential project. Another component of the oak woodland policies in the general plan is identifying that the evaluation can be done by a trained professional. It doesn't require that an applicant hire a registered professional forester or other biological consultant to do this oak woodland analysis. We will be training our staff as well as myself with a biological background to be applying this analysis. And the last comment we got was how the county defined oak woodland overall. And the county doesn't need to follow the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's definition of oak woodland. The county can set their own definition, and we have done that in the general plan and the EIR. Another comment we got was just regarding general wildlife policies, with specifically to how the 1987 wildlife handbook would be used going forward. And the general plan update and the 2018 general plan does include the Tuolumne County Wildlife Handbook as an option for project applicants who come in for a discretionary entitlement. They can use that handbook as well as the mitigation measures that are in that to fulfill to work towards their CEQA analysis. However, the Wildlife Handbook is old, and there have been a number of laws that have been passed since that Wildlife Handbook was adopted that the Wildlife Handbook doesn't address. And so the general plan acknowledges that there may be a gap in between where the Wildlife Handbook gets an applicant and where we need to be in order to meet state and federal law. And so it does acknowledge that the Wildlife Handbook may not get you there alone. And then finally, it does provide an option for an applicant to hire their own biological consultant, as is the common practice that we do now. Applicants can either use the Wildlife Handbook or they can hire a biological consultant. And lastly, on wildlife policies, it's important to remember that the general plan is a framework document, and that there's lots of other wildlife regulations and codes that the county doesn't have jurisdiction over that we still enforce on project sites. And this would be related. Wetlands is a great example of that. Migratory birds is another one. The last master response that we put together was addressing fire safety. The first thing that we did was we looked at what CEQA requires us to do. And there's two ways that fire safety kind of mingles with CEQA. One is whether or not the project would exacerbate the risk of wildfire hazards to the point of a significant hazard. And two, whether it would result in the need for new fire facilities where the construction would result in environmental impacts. So those were the two lenses that we initially reviewed the responses through. It's important to note that there are lots of wildfire safety policies in the general plan, specifically Goal 9G, 9H, and 17E. And the idea here is that the general plan, as I talked about earlier, it's a puzzle, and it interlocks with other regulations and other county documents to provide the overall context for how we evaluate fire safety in the county. I pulled this one out because it's a lot on the screen, but I wanted to just make sure to show you and the public that this is an implementation program, 9GA. And this is a bullet point list of all of the different documents that we use at various levels of county government when we are evaluating a project's impact on fire safety. We've got here building codes, fire codes, other CAL FIRE documents, documents from the county administrator's office and such. And so we don't look at fire safety just through the lens of the general plan. It interacts and interlocks with a lot of other reports and documents and requirements that are out there. This is another policy from the general plan, and I just wanted to sort of give an example of how those two different things would work together. So this is policy 9G1, which says maintain county fire protection regulations that are consistent with section 4290 or the equivalent of the California Public Resources Code and other applicable fire protection regulations. So this is the high level policy, and then this is how we implement. This is from our Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, Title 11, which talks about the maximum length of cul-de-sacs. We got a lot of questions and concerns about entrapment and evacuation, and we have other documents that address those issues. This project went before the Tuolumne County Planning Commission on December 19th. We had 25 people speak during the public comment period, and we summarized that meeting for you in your staff report. But the public's concerns focused really around climate change, agricultural policies, wildfire safety, as well as the review period of the documents. At the end of that meeting, the Tuolumne County Planning Commission did recommend approval of the project with proposed language changes, and those have been included in your staff report.
Since the staff report went out, we did receive some additional comments, and so I wanted to go over those. Your board has these documents in front of you, and there are copies in the back for the public. So the first one is on December 24th, the California Supreme Court issued its opinion in Sierra Club versus the County of Fresno. And one of the court's holdings was that an EIR needs to connect the air quality impacts to potential health impact or explain why such information cannot be determined. The recirculated draft EIR determined that the general plan update air quality impacts are less than significant. But as part of today's handouts, you've received a revised EIR errata sheet, which outlines the EIR's discussion of the issue identified by the Supreme Court. And in putting that together, staff and consultants reviewed some of the briefs even that were before the Supreme Court to make sure that we understood what the court was looking for and that it was already included in the recirculated draft EIR. Now, yesterday, the county received a 17-page letter with 810 pages of attachments from the law firm of Shute, Mahali, and Weinberger on behalf of CSERC. We've reviewed the letter and drafted a response that has been provided to your board today. The Shute Mahali letter without attachments and the county's response are provided in the back of the room. Additionally, we have drafted responses to Robin Wood's letters that were submitted on December 19th and December 23rd. The letters were included in the board packet, but copies of the county's responses are provided in the back of the room. Your board, we're here for any questions that you have, though your board may want to hold questions until you hear from the public.
Lastly, after great consideration, it's our staff recommendation that the Board of Supervisors certify the environmental impact report, adopt the findings of fact, statement of overriding considerations, and mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, adopt the 2018 Tuolumne County General Plan, and approve the ordinance to update Title 17 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code. With that, again, we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would the board wish to wait after public comment? Okay, so now the public may comment on on the general plan, 3 minutes. You don't have to give your name, but please come forward and.
Thank you, gentlemen and board members. This whole process has been going on, as we all know, for about
Sorry,
5-6
one
years.
moment. We need somebody to work the timer. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, David.
Okay.
I'll keep it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, one of the things I continually brought up was the noise ordinance portion, and it's limited down to 50 dB. I've requested at the Planning Commission meeting that it be raised to 60 dB. The reason for that is that in the last 6 years, I provided noise studies, provided it to the former staff, showing that the water running under our bridge is at 65 dB. I showed that automobile tires going by on the pavement can get as high as 75 to 80 dB. You are putting a restriction on at 50 dB. I'm requesting it be changed to 60 dB. I thought at the Planning Commission hearing that since we had a long conversation after the public hearing that it had been changed to 60 dB. I don't see that change, so I request you to take a look at that. The second item is the 200 feet restriction for events against property lines. The question is, what are we protecting, property or individuals? If a home is within 200 feet of the property line, I have no problem with the restriction to an event. But if the home is 500 feet or 1,000 feet away, what are we protecting, the property or the residence itself? So they were struggling with that, saying, how do we control that in the future, if a home is built within the 200 feet, I would suggest that the ordinance be written such that if a resident is built within 200 feet of a property line, that would stand, that we couldn't have events within 200 feet of the property line. Other than that, to me, it's a greater taking of property from the individuals. Much of this agricultural land is much further apart and probably doesn't have any of these effects on it, but some of the smaller agricultural lands will have faced with this 200 feet rule. So that's all I'm asking you to do, is take a look at those two. I cannot stay and answer questions after, but in the public hearing with the Planning Commission, they did hold me over. We had a large discussion on it, and I did think that the 50 dB would be changed to 60 dB. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. John, rest of the board members, Anaya Kirk. I'm here for two reasons. I'll make it quick. With the general plan coming up and with two new supervisors coming on board next week, including myself, one is they think that we should be a part of the decision-making process, so I'm going to address that in a minute. And two, when I was at the Planning Commission, one of the number one concerns, I know on the board it was number 6 was fire prevention. I think over the last few months, fire prevention has definitely come up the chain. So since the Planning Commission, I went back and I looked at the general plan, and I was pleased to find under the safety element of the general plan, there's a Tuolumne County multi-jurisdiction hazard plan, which Quincy talked about. There's also documents that it references under utilize a Tuolumne County Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, the Highway 108 Strategic Plan, the CAL FIRE Strategic Plan for Tuolumne and Calaveras Unit. And then under 6JF, it talks about requiring new development to provide safe ingress and egress routes. So I was pleased that that verbiage was in there. Under 6K2, apply contemporary fire prevention and protection standards to new development. 6K3, require fire prevention and protection measures to be built into new development projects. There's 6K4, to determine the impact proposed development will have on the provisions of fire protection services and maintain the established level of services as outlined in the Tuolumne County Fire Protection Service Level Stabilization Plan. And then there's 6K6, require that new development be provided with access roads which allow for safe and efficient response by emergency apparatus and the safe evacuation of residents in the event of a structural or wildfire. There's K67, there's K6C. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is, I heard the concerns of the public. I went and I researched the general plan. We already have stuff built into the general plan that addresses fire prevention. If there's things that we need to update along the way, if those attached documents need to be addressed, I feel comfortable moving forward. So I'm here tonight just to let you know, if I was in your shoes, I'm going to be on the board next week, but I'm fine with you guys approving it. I think they've done a lot of good work, and I think if there's anything that needs to be addressed on the road as we get the information, it's a living document, so we can update it. We can see it 4 times a year. So I'm here just to let you know I've done that research, and I feel much more comfortable moving forward that there is that stuff built into it. So
Thank you.
Chairman Gray and Board Mark Banks, and community member of the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee. And as you know, in 2015, we spent well over a year going through the draft documents and the elements. And perhaps a bit naively at the time, I thought, in the most regulated state in the union, why do we need more than the 5 elements required by the state? Well, as we worked through that, and with staff's help, we found that there's a lot of places we couldn't get without having those elements. So I'm just here today to tell you that I think we did our due diligence there, sometimes to empty boardroom while we hash this stuff out ourselves, but we came to a lot of conclusions that I think will eliminate a lot of the inconsistencies and also give you that as you move forward, as these property owners move forward, restore some of their property rights in the fact that they don't have to go fight with staff to try to get some of these things done. It's in writing. Now we have that before us. We know where we're going. And that's one thing that if you've got a project or a piece of property you want to develop, you want to be certain going in that most of those things are covered. And I think this general plan and EIR addressed all those things. So for my part, I endorse the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Sharon Marovich. I'm representing the Tuolumne Heritage Committee. Our concerns are the following. The statement that the update's purpose is to achieve maximum flexibility for development leaves out a similar maximum flexibility for conservation of the qualities that distinguish Tuolumne County, such as our scenery, our cultural resources, and our open space. All of our state highways are eligible for Caltrans scenic status. A general plan should be more proactive in protecting roadway viewshed. New funding sources for our libraries aren't listed, even though the general plan says they are needed. Reducing parkland, I'd like to repeat that again. Reducing parkland for our residents from 30 acres to 5 acres per 1,000 people, and that's a 75% increase, fails to meet the needs of our residents and faces families to drive many miles from home to state and federal facilities. Hillside development should be required to conform to the rules, not merely encouraged to do so. Table 3.5-1 lists only 39 cultural resources in Tuolumne County. In fact, there are thousands of recorded cultural resources in surveys and CEQA documents, and probably an equal amount that are not recovered or recorded yet. The general plan statement that constraints to infill development would not likely be burdensome because of only 39 listed properties ignores the richness of our cultural heritage as discussed, as expressed in our buildings, our structures, and our archaeological sites. The Tuolumne Heritage Committee objects to the development of more agricultural land as indicated in the plan because it is a valuable resource. It keeps our county rural, and thousands of acres of non-agricultural land are already zoned for development. The county's Superior General Plan alternative poses more threats to cultural resources than all of the other alternatives. Therefore, we ask that the superior alternative either be modified to reduce this risk, or another less destructive alternative be chosen. Thank you. And by the way, it was a pleasure to
Thank you.
address the board with the first female CAO on the board.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Leahy. I live in Tweenhart. I have some concerns about the general plan update and the EIR that I just want to address with you guys. Sorry. There we go. It appears that the county is choosing to use weak language in the general plan update that does not mandate the protection and conservation of biological and water resources. I understand that there is an attempt to address biological resources in the update included in implementation programs under Goal 16B, including 16BI and 16BJ, but I don't think the language in those are enough. General plans from other counties in the region include strong language to protect and conserve biological and water resources. For example, the El Dorado County's general plan includes a policy, that says conserve contiguous blocks of important habitat to offset the effects of increased loss and fragmentation elsewhere in the county through a biological resource mitigation program that will result in the conservation of habitats that support special status species, aquatic environments like streams, rivers, and lakes, wetlands and riparian habitat, important habitat for migratory species like deer, and large expanses of native vegetation. So this is the kind of specific language that I think should be in the general plan update that isn't. So I urge you guys to add in this kind of specific, and authoritative language into the final general plan update. The easiest way to accomplish this would be to retain some of the wording in the current general plan that has been removed from the revised general plan update, including policy 4J2, which says maintain a biological resources conservation program to facilitate biological resource mitigation, or retain policy 4J5, comply with no net loss policy for wetlands, or retain policy 4J6, which says require new development to achieve no net loss of habitat values for habitats such as valley oak woodland, serpentine soils, old growth coniferous forests, big tree forests, old growth oak, aspen groves, native perennial grasslands, and cliff habitats. Additionally, I see a need for more assertive language in terms of water quality and water conservation, including language that requires but not just encourages new development and new construction to utilize water-efficient plumbing fixtures, recycled water, and to capture and utilize stormwater. So I just urge you guys to make those changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gray and members of the board. I'm Chris Barsanti from Columbia. I, along with many others, are upset that you have scheduled these hearings at this busiest time of year. You may have seen the opinion poll in the Union Democrat in which 80% of the respondents replied that these hearings should be delayed until more time has been given for the public to review the latest updates. As you know, this process occurs about every 20 years or so. And so it seems extremely important that educated input from the public be a primary part of the process. While I understand that the two outgoing supervisors would like to vote on this update, it will be the two incoming supervisors, along with the three remaining supervisors, who will be working with the new general plan in the coming years. For this reason, it seems important that their input and vote be included. This practice of having outgoing supervisors vote on the general plan, which they will not be in office to enforce, seems to be a habit in Tuolumne County. As you probably know, the last general plan update in 1996 was signed on December 26th so that the outgoing supervisor, Dee Bernardi, could vote on it. I sincerely hope that this practice does not become a tradition that is followed in 20 years when the next general plan update takes place, although I doubt I'll be around to witness it. While a managed resource element has been added to the proposed update, which protects timber and mining operations, there are almost no protections for the wildlife and waterways in the updated natural resources element, which combines the California state requirement for a conservation element and an open space element. The decision to elevate the managed resources of timber production and mining to a status of having their own general plan element and reducing the conservation and open space elements to a lesser status by combining them is evident of the entire focus of this general plan update. Other than oak woodlands, whose protections are outlined in the natural resources element, wildlife habitats and stream, creeks, vernal pools, wetlands, etc., are resources that must be protected by specific open space policies, and such policies and programs are not outlined in this update, which is a flaw and which it's possibly is a violation of CEQA. To correct this flaw, the Wildlife Handbook, which was lauded as a wonderful masterpiece of work when it first came out, should be updated and continue to be used to mitigate cumulative impacts to biological resources as it contains specific mitigation measures. And I can't finish it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Tom Parrington. I'm here speaking individually and on behalf of the Central Sierra Audubon Society, and I've been involved in the update of the general plan as a member of a committee studying the biological resources section, which is now natural resources, and I am concerned that the proposed update regarding both agricultural land uses and protection of biological resources is worse than the current general plan. It appears to have been written by and on behalf of the developing community and with little consideration for the environmental community and the unique resources of this county. As noted before, the biological resources as updated deletes the no net loss provisions for certain unique habitat. The limited protection provided for oak woodland, but no protection is provided for such items as the old-growth oak, not part of a oak woodland, an old-growth coniferous forest. And your current general plan and the proposed new general plan call for preparation of a heritage tree program, and that has never been prepared, attempted, but never completed during the entire 20-year term of the current general plan. There's no deadline for that now, even though it's proposed in the new draft. If no net loss of sensitive habitat was important then, why is it not important now? The cumulative impacts for oak woodland have gone from bad to worse since the planning was undertaken in 2015 and 16. Before, approximately 3,785 acres of oak woodland might be subject to development. Under the current plan, over 21,000 acres of oak woodland is potentially subject to development. The draft, the final EIR must recognize a greater risk to oak woodland from already approved but undeveloped lots and parcels within the county. Over 8,000 exist, and no mention is made of that. The county must do a complete inventory of approved but undeveloped lots to determine what the full impact will be to oak woodland. The other item here is the defined communities that you want to focus, where you want to focus developments. Big Oak Flat, Chinese Camp, Long Barn. These are historical acronyms, not real communities, and it's kind of absurd to put those out as where you really want to focus development. Fire threat and lack of fire insurance are going to be really what determine what happens in this county. Thank you.
Doesn't say 3 minutes. Cheating me by 2 seconds already. Ron Kopf, both individually on behalf of the Tuolumne County Business Council and the Board of Realtors. After more than 6 years of work and review, it's time to retire the outdated and cumbersome 1996 general plan and adopt a proposed version that is clearer and more concise and achieves a balance of the mandatory elements, elective elements, and meets California Environmental Quality Act requirements. CRA has pointed out that the general plan is not a static document and can be updated and amended up to 4 times on a yearly basis. It is important that the proposed general plan be adopted so that work can also proceed on the county housing element, zoning, and ordinances that are equally confusing and an impediment to providing much-needed housing in our county. Incoming Supervisor Campbell has noted that there are additional studies being done on wildfires. This is to be expected, and the information should be reviewed when completed and addressed as needed in the general plan updates, or, as pointed out in the county, may find it more appropriate to address any additional fire issues with changes to the county emergency services plan and/or ordinances that will be reviewed later this year. It has been well documented that we have a severe lack of housing in our state, and our rural county is no different. Our local hospital has noted that one of their main impediments to attracting needed staff, nurses, and doctors is a lack of apartments and inadequate diversity of for-sale housing. There are many factors that have contributed to our state lack of housing. UCLA planning professor Michael Manville noted that local opposition is often a key inhibiting factor. People tend to resist change, and after they have moved into their homes and neighborhoods, they often do not want additional homes built on property nearby. He also noted that, therefore, at one point in time, others didn't want the house that we all lived in built either. So when building needed housing is viewed as a problem that needs to be made more difficult and expensive rather than as part of the solution, opposition often translates into increased and unnecessary review, delays, regulation, mitigation, litigation, and all that adds cost and adversely impacts the needed housing. I've heard comments from some people who have not had the pleasure of navigating the arduous and high-risk entitlement process that the proposed general plan somehow makes this process too easy for development. I can tell you there is nothing easy about the process and would encourage others to be part of the housing solution. What the revised general plan does is it makes the process understandable. That's what it's supposed to do. There is little clear in the 1996 general plan or the equally cumbersome and outdated zoning regulations and ordinances. In addition, there are various community plans, additional state and federal regulations, and California building codes that also have to be addressed and adhered to. As noted earlier, California has some of the most arduous and restrictive requirements in the nation, and the county general plan document in front of you meets those requirements. Replacing the outdated 1996 general plan is a much-needed next step. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 seconds to spare. Anything else on this side?
I'm Craig Brotby, representing myself. I would just say the old general plan didn't work very well, and the new general plan is a lot better, and I support it.
Thank you.
I'm Ryan Hall, also just representing myself and just supporting the new plan.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Dowdy, president of the Tuolumne County Business Council. Chairman Gray and supervisors, good to be here. Several thoughts. First, the comments that you hear that this thing is being rushed. 6 years is a long time. It feels like to me that you guys are just trying to finish what you started, and especially with Supervisor Royce and Supervisor Hanvelt. This has been an 8 year out of your 8 year term. This has been 6 years of work trying to get to the point we're at today. So to me, it doesn't feel rushed. It feels like you just want to finish what you started, and I commend you for that. The second piece is just a comment regarding the staff to put this together, and it is really difficult to create a shorter document. They took a very large document and really shrunk it down. That takes an enormous amount of skill, an enormous amount of effort. It's much easier to go the other way around, is to expand on something. So kudos to the team here at the county to tackling that project, because that is a challenge. And I'm sure Sarah could comment about, if you want legal work done, to write a big document costs a little, to write a very small document costs much more, okay? At least that's been my experience. And finally, I've clearly really support the plan moving forward. Seems to me to be a very, very good foundation for additional work. One of my concerns for this county, and Ron Koff touched on, is just lack of affordable housing. I think this document gives you a foundation then to work on additional elements on affordable housing and make sure that we've got more housing for future residents of this county that they can afford, which is a very tall task right now. So I encourage you to adopt the new general plan and appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm a property owner, and I am all for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm also a property owner in this county, and I fully support the plan. I'm familiar with some of the other general plans in your neighboring counties. It is nearly impossible to come up with that perfect plan that everybody can support. And again, it can become extremely costly to add all the regulations that everybody would like to see in it. But again, I have been familiar with more than one general plan and I think you guys are doing a great job, and I fully support it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Gray, fellow supervisors, and our new CAO, Mrs. Riggs. Thank you. My name is Frank Helm. I live in Strawberry. I'm here to speak in favor of you folks adopting the new general plan as it is been presented to you by the county staff. I know that people, leaders in opposition to the adoption of the plan, say that this has been rushed through. And I, like some other speakers here, indicated that 6 years is probably enough, and it's time to move on and adopt the new plan. And frankly, I'd like to say that some of the tactics that have been used by people in the past to object to projects such as Blue Mountain Minerals, Lowe's, the addition of the grocery store in Walmart, all that added to was years of delay, added costs, and the projects were eventually okayed to, I don't think, the degradation or the lowering of the quality of life in Tuolumne County. I, like everybody else and the majority of people in this room, appreciate our lifestyle and the advantages of a rural community and all of the beauty that is provided. So I would strongly urge you to adopt this plan, make things easier to adopt new housing, reduce regulation, reduce the cost and time that it takes to process things through our CRA. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And Supervisor Hanfelt and Royce, thank you for your contributions that you've made over the time that you've been in office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dory Beats, and I'm with the Planning and Development Department for the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians. On behalf of Tribal Chair Kevin Day, who could not make it, I offer the following. As many of you know, the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians has long been a resident here in Tuolumne County, and over the years, we have experienced much change. With those changes, we have seen much collaboration between our two governments. As you may also know, with SB 18, it requires local governments to consult with Native American Indian tribes to aid in the protection of traditional tribal cultural places through local land use planning. With respect to the general plan, we have been notified, we have been consulted with, and we appreciate county staff for always including us. Specific to the Tuolumne Community Plan, we met with staff, and thank you, David Gonzalez and other county folks, for including and making sure information was accurate about our community. Our tribal community seeks to continue the great relationship we have with the county, and we support the adoption of the plan. We hope to continue to work together on important issues such as growth, land use planning, and protection of our cultural and natural resources. Thank you. And thank you, Supervisors Royce and Hamholt, for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Stapp. I'm just a local resident representing myself. Been here for 42 years, and I want to thank you for your work, for your hours and hours on this project. And my wife and I are particularly interested in helping find and develop properties for seniors, affordable housing for seniors. And we really feel that it's time for an amendment and a new plan. So we're just in favor of that, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Limke. I fully support approval of the general plan. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I concur with all the positive supporting comments of approval tonight. It is now 2019. We've had over a decade of recovery in our state of California. It's time for us to get on a plan for local community prosperity and positive green growth in our community, and supporting a plan is the start for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ruben Chonside from Land and Structure Survey, Engineering and Design. We have been waiting for at least 10 years to have a relevant general plan for this county. We are looking for a concise and usable guiding policy to provide direction for appropriate development. We want a policy document that addresses state requirements and rational local priorities. We do not want a general plan that has too much overlap with other local, state, and federal policies. Navigating the development process involves sufficient regulation, and it does not need to be repeated in our general plan. We are confident in the content and quality of the document that has been prepared and encourage the board to move forward with an approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, John Buckley, CSERC. Obviously, you've heard from a lot of people here who are supportive, and they are the ones that you have worked to provide a plan to please. I followed the process for many years and have sat in on almost all the committees that are related to it. As the staff has already shared, the county has based a projected increase of 9,000 residents as the basis for this revised general plan. The state only believes there'll be 1,000, and the Union Democrat last week had an article showing that the county's population is declining, continuing to decline. But supposedly, to be prepared for that growth projection by the county, this plan would convert thousands of acres of ag land to residential and commercial designations, just one of many actions aimed at promoting development, which is a key part of your plan. In reality, is the tourism and service industry that's the backbone of the local economy. People visit here because of Yosemite and the resources, the oak-covered open spaces, history, and the county's rural character. But because you have eliminated in this proposed plan any protection measures that define protection for scenic values, and because this plan lacks any disincentives or restrictions to prevent development from sprawling out into scenic rural areas, you put at risk the very backbone of the economy, which is, again, the tourist industry. This plan actually promotes special commercial development in rural areas where there is no public water or public sewer. And as a result of board direction, as all of you on the board are fully aware, the plan has removed requirements to protect valley oaks, old growth oaks, other values of at-risk resources. And while the wildlife handbook is still allowed as an option, the current plan's existing requirement that alternative mitigation measures be commensurate with policies in the plan is eliminated in the new plan. County residents aren't crying out for more development, more traffic, and more congestion. Only a small slice of business interests will benefit if this plan is approved unless changes are made. I ask you on behalf of our center to hold off before taking any final action on this plan, to give staff, the public, and the board a specific period of time to discuss reasonable, minor adjustments to reduce the flaws, to add a strict policy prohibiting new development in extreme fire risk sites, and to add necessary mitigation for greenhouse gas emissions. There is no pivotal reason to approve this deficient plan today, and there are many reasons to step back, make reasonable adjustments, and make the final product more balanced and compliant. I urge you to take the time to make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak before I close the public hearing? Seeing no one? Okay, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and staff will review any materials submitted during the public hearing, and then we'll come back. So 15-minute break. Thank you. Supervisor Royce. And Brennan.
He's smart, that's why.
Carl was looking out for you. Okay. All right. After our break, we're going to have a review of the board general questions. Is that what we were going to do right now?
Actually, to first start with the general plan land use designations.
Okay.
So I'll help kind of guide this. I know that Supervisor Brennan has mentioned one property, one area to staff about specific parcel land use designation changes, and I wanted to just check with the rest of the board if there were any specific parcels that you wanted to discuss for changes. Okay, with that, I will allow Quincy to show what Supervisor Brennan had brought up to staff.
So, find my paper. In a previous ad hoc meeting that we had with your board, there were some questions about some properties in western Tuolumne County, right at the county line, that are currently designated agricultural, but zoned A10, which is agricultural with a 10-acre minimum property size. These properties range in size from 37 acres, 40, 44, 48, up into just over 350 acres in size, and I've put them up here on the map. These were the questions these were the parcels that were brought up in like I said, in an ad hoc general plan meeting about whether or not the board was interested in continuing to have these properties go from agricultural to rural residential, which allows a minimum parcel size of 5 acres. These properties being zoned for a 10-acre, they wouldn't be able to be split and developed all the way to the 5-acre, but certainly could be developed at some point in the future through a discretionary entitlement. So wanted to bring this up to your board for discussion.
Supervisor Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. And so this just represented an area that
in talking with a number of members of the ag community, when we talk about high-value ag land, this kind of really represents the heart of where that is in the western part of the county. We tried to understand why it maybe was proposed for a change, and we couldn't figure it out. And since it had the 10-acre minimum, I would suggest that we leave it as it is and not change it. And then if the owners want to come back, again, this is a document, and there will be an opportunity in the future where there could be a conversation and look at this again.
Okay. Carl?
Yeah,
You're
I
just-
also participated in that, and we've been trying to figure out for a while now why those were in the initial effort and can't. And I think that to support one of our overarching goals of keep not preserving as much as possible ag land, I think we ought to back those out back to ag land use. I'm sorry. Land designation.
Any other board comments? Knowing where that's at, it is obviously one of the better areas, and the vista is great. So I have no problems with what you're proposing. So do we need a vote on that, or can we just
If there's
give you
consensus,
directions?
we can include that in the
Okay.
final motion.
Public comment?
No, public comment is closed.
All right, thank you. All right.
Now, the next piece that we'd like your board to review are specific property owner requests that were submitted after the general plan was, the EIR process was started. These parcels and these requests are included in your agenda packet as part of Exhibit C, and showing what is proposed in the general plan, what the property owner has requested. These requests have been reviewed by our EIR consultant, Ascent, and they have found that these changes would not affect the analysis of the EIR.
Any board comment? And this is property owner request.
Property owner requests.
All right,
That's
thank you.
correct.
Consensus? Okay.
Okay. The next item that we'd like your board to review is Goal 8A of the general plan and mitigation measure 3.2-1, which adds implementation program 8AD. This is with regard to the avoidance of ag conversion, and Supervisor Brennan has a potential conflict. So if the remainder of the board wishes to discuss this goal and the implementation program, then we would have Supervisor Brennan recuse herself.
Okay, could you do a brief overview of the goal, just so we're all clear?
Sure thing. Just a second. Goal 8A, avoid the conversion of agricultural lands except on property determined to be infill lands, infill areas. This includes policy A81, which is avoid the conversion of agricultural lands from the agricultural general plan land use designation and compatible zonings. Implementation program 8AA, which is to encourage the protection of ag lands through programs such as voluntary purchase of development rights. Policy 8A2, which exempts certain ag lands from the policies of Goal 8A, including areas designated ag that are less than 160 acres and surrounded by land designated other than ag or public. Or parcels that meet specific criteria, such as less than 80 acres in size, located within 500 feet of a public water main, and situated near more urban land use designations. Policy 8A3, which grants exceptions to the avoidance policy only where the locational relationship of the land together with the use proposed would provide a public benefit to justify the exception. Then we have implementation programs under this policy. 8AB, grant exceptions to the policies and implementation programs only when such exception is approved by the Board of Supervisors. 8AC, utilize agricultural rating system matrix only to evaluate applications proposing exceptions. 8AD, and this is the mitigation measure that was proposed in the EIR, which does establish a new procedure for evaluating development on lands with an agricultural land use designation or lands identified by the latest soils data as containing potentially important farmland. And then finally, yes, it is finally, policy 8A4, which deals with buffer zones on property adjacent to land designated agriculture.
Okay. Any board comment, questions? Seems to be okay with it.
Then if your board has any questions or comments about the remainder of the general plan elements, the EIR, or Title 17 revisions, staff is available.
Board comments? They were well covered. Okay. Next. Break.
If you have anything else in...
One of the questions, and I'm not sure on the process of how we're going to answer, there was some things brought up during public comment, and we want to address a few of those. Do you want to address those now, or do you want to wait till?
Yes, no.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start with some of the comments that were made about wildlife policies and lack of language in the general plan. As actually was mentioned by some of the commenters, but really came from direction from the board, was to look at the language in the general plan and eliminate redundancies between language in the general plan that restated state and federal regulations. That was something we wanted to look at. And so where there is state and federal laws regarding wildlife habitat and endangered and sensitive species, that language was removed from the general plan, but captured in a policy that lists out all of the things that we need to look at in the CEQA analysis. And so just because the language isn't in the general plan doesn't mean that we are, as the county is not required to look at those things. We certainly are. One of them would be wetlands. There are federal and state policies about no net loss of wetlands, and any discretionary entitlement that comes through our department will be required to adhere to those state and federal laws. And so it's not because we won't be following them, it's that we are already required to follow them, and then there has been sort of a consolidation of and direction given. It was actually drafted by our consultants biologists to provide a list of things that staff needs to look at in the CEQA analysis with respect to sensitive habitats and endangered species. There was some discussion about the wildlife handbook. I did mention that during my presentation. The wildlife handbook, as you know, has attempted to be updated several times over the last decade and more, but those efforts were not successful. And so it's important to recognize that the wildlife handbook does not, on its own, does not stand alone and meet the current laws that projects that come through the county are required to meet. And so the general plan is acknowledging that there is that gap, and will work with individual property owners to make sure that projects close that gap.
Okay, would it be a possible goal for this board or the new board to establish some sort of deadline to look at possibly updating the wildlife handbook to make it more convenient for the person that's looking at developing?
I would suggest that if that's the consensus of your board, that it become a work program policy for CRA, that we go back down that path of updating the wildlife handbook. But until that happens, we are acknowledging that there is a gap to be filled with respect to compliance with those regulations.
But we're not going to ignore the regulations that are established by the federal and state.
That's
just
correct.
because it's not there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It was, I think, my initial comments that led to us stripping out a lot of the redundant language in the general plan. And the rationale for that, just for the public's information, because I'm pretty sure the board knows this, we've talked about it before, but when you replicate language in federal or state laws or statutes or policies, and then those laws or statutes or policies change, then you have to change the language in your general plan. Whereas if you just reference those materials and acknowledge their existence, then every time those things change, we don't have to go through the staff action to change the language in our general plan. So that was the intent. It's to streamline and make easier the process of wading through the general plan. But two, it was to obviate future unnecessary work on the part of our staff when we're keeping up with all of the ever-changing environmental standards at the state and the federal level.
Thank you. Any other comment? All right. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention there were some other comments that were made regarding lack of information about cultural resources in the project. And I just want to point out that the table that was referred to is not intended to be an exhaustive list of the cultural resources or historic resources that are in the county. It's a shortened list with that of specific properties that are listed. And when we go through the discretionary review process, any impacts to historic buildings, we are required to look at that. And so just because the table doesn't necessarily reflect all the different types and levels of cultural and historic resources in the county, those are certainly considered in the CEQA evaluation of a project.
And when we issue a building permit, we also make a statement within the permit process that if there are cultural resources found, we have to review them and study them. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, the Tuolumne County does go a step further and goes outside of the discretionary review process, enters the ministerial or more over-the-counter type permitting, and through our building permit process does have additional restrictions where we have to look at the cultural resources studies that either have been done on a property or adjacent to a property. And there are instances when a simple building permit does trigger a cultural study, which is a little bit different than what happens in the normal CEQA process. So there are additional measures in place in the county to protect cultural resources during the building permit process.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything else to add.
We have all night.
No, at this point, if your board has any additional comments that you want to make, but we would, when you're ready, we would request a short break so that we can compile a motion for you with the changes that have been mentioned.
Okay, Supervisor Hanveld.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the staff and congratulate you on a great job. I know some of you have gone without sleep and worked some long hours, long weekends to get this thing done. And to those who think this took 6 years, I want to point out it took a couple years just to get out of the blocks. This has been a very long process. It's time that we do something about it. And I want to say that the document is not perfect. No one would argue that. But, there's lots of compromises in here, but there are, and I think we have to operate on a rational basis and a rule of reasonableness. And I generally have the feeling that on property rights that we got to be able to find ways to help people do reasonable things on their land. And I think that's what the premise of this whole thing has been. I would like to comment about several things that I have an issue with. One of them is Oak Woodlands. And you put those, what I call arbitrary rules of 10% up there. I don't like those. And I'll tell you why I don't like those. I love Oak Woodlands. but the word has to be healthy oak woodlands. And some of our oak woodlands are not healthy. They represent a hazard to themselves, and oak trees burn too. So I think we need to be be fixing our rules a little bit to deal with healthy oak woodlands. If you got a huge canopy and they're not healthy, or you got a minor canopy and they're not healthy, you need to do something about it. The people that mentioned habitat. Did Adam leave? Are you still here? Adam Freeze and I go back a few years, have a little relationship because we had a windstorm and a bunch of trees came down on my back property, and I had to file an emergency timber harvest plan to deal with it. And when I did that, I also went in and did ground fuel mastication and ladder fuel, got rid of all of them. And some of my neighbors are worried I was destroying habitat. There's more wildlife visible on my property today than ever before, and they seem to love it. And we didn't really destroy habitat. We got rid of a fire hazard. So I think this is allowing for that. Now, one of my concerns with this that I'm not sure I'm willing to live with, and that is Mr. Watson got up and talked about noise. I am violating 50 dB by talking to you right at this very moment. So if we're talking about people having a conversation and we're going to restrict that, 50 dB is an unreasonable low level of noise, and where are you measuring it? I'm concerned about that. But I'm very happy about some of the concepts associated with providing affordable housing. Since I've been a supervisor, I feel stymied by that because we aren't creating an inventory of affordable housing. Inventories are low, and in fact, the existing housing in this country is slowly atrophying from not benign neglect, but malignant neglect, and we're going to lose more houses than we gain at some point because they're aging and deteriorating. And the final comment is we have to deal with public safety, and that is a big issue. We all know what happened up north, and everybody's paying attention to Paradise. But 1991, it happened in the Oakland Hills. It happened in Laguna in 1993. We've had several instances. 85 people died up in Paradise. I know the supervisor up there. He ran for his life, and he told me he thought they were going to die. We have to deal with that issue, and our general plan has got to allow us to do that. And all of our activities have got to allow us to do for that. That is the major crisis in this county. I'm in favor of this, but I really would like to know if we can make an adjustment to that noise issue and still approve this thing. We must go forward. Delaying this thing is just purely inane in my book, and it's inane because we're putting off progress in this county. We have to make things happen. That's what we're here for, to make things happen in a positive direction in the best interest of the county. So that's my comments on this. I want to thank you all again, all of you that worked so hard, and Supervisor Brennan and Supervisor Rutherford worked with the team. I want to thank them too. This was a big effort. It wasn't done overnight, and this is not a move in haste. This is a deliberate move that's well thought through. Thank you very much.
Just clarification on the noise issue. The 50 decibels that are proposed, it has to do with 50 over a period of time, not just for the moment. It's over an hour or
Yes.
what have you. Would you clarify that, please?
Yes, sir. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our consultant from Ascent Environmental to come up and discuss noise. And while he is coming up here, I just want to clarify why staff is recommending that noise for commercial events be measured at a property line. And it is to actually prevent the situation that was discussed during the public comment period, where if and when there is a structure, a residence built closer than 200 feet or something to a property line, all of a sudden we have a commercial event venue that would be in noncompliance and could no longer have events. And so that is the reason why staff is choosing to measure on the property line.
Okay, before he answers, dogs barking. We don't have a noise ordinance that deals with dog barking. Chainsaws. We don't have a noise ordinance that deals with chainsaws. Those are more obnoxious than conversation. So now you can deal with it.
Yes.
I hope you don't feel after I'm done speaking that my conversation was annoying either. Noise is one of those challenging issues to present in an environmental impact report and also to regulate. There's a lot of different noise metrics that are used. So you're absolutely correct that my voice right now is louder than the noise ordinance. It's about, right now you're hearing about 60, 65 decibels. You're not the property line. The way that the ordinance is written is it's the equivalent noise level over a period of time. And the equivalent noise level is, it's going to get a little technical, but it's noise energy that's averaged out over a period of time. So my talking right now at 60 decibels for 5 minutes, the LEQ of that, which is what we're talking about, the noise equivalency level, the noise energy averaged over time, over an hour, is going to probably be in the 40 decibel period, 45 decibel period. Now, if I'm constantly talking over that period of time, over that 1 hour period of time, you're hearing that constant noise, then yes, that would be 60 dB decibel LEQ over that 1 hour period of time. So it'd be a constant noise energy level, and that would be something that would, that would be in excess of the noise standard. The way these are written, they're written to try to accommodate things that happen sporadically. Noise happens sporadically, and it still allows that to occur without being overly restrictive, but it also tries to regulate noise levels that are constant. Aircraft noise is one of those things that we regulate quite a bit, that we try to establish noise metrics for. And by comparison, a 60 LEQ is, say, 5 jets flying overhead in an hour. That would probably be the same as a 60 LEQ equivalent. So it's not quiet, but it's also not overly restrictive. It's trying to strike a balance.
But time of day makes a difference, too. If you're talking 2 o'clock in the morning, that's a little different than midday.
Right, and the ordinance is written to
quiet time.
Yeah, there's the 50 is at what time?
From 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., and the 60 is from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So
right.
Adjust for the time of day.
Yeah. Okay. So just explaining it. Don't have to like it, but I'm just explaining how it comes about.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah. I also want to thank staff, and Sherry and I probably at least as much and probably a little bit more than the rest of the board, and certainly more than the public, understand how much work this staff has put in. And I include Tiffany and her organization as well in that. The hours that have gone into this are not really probably very well measurable. But trust me, the people that have been working on this have been working much more than 8 hours a day, and much more in some cases, many cases, 5 days a week on this. And it's not just them, but it's the rest of the staff that either work for them or around them, because when they're working on this, they're not doing all the other work. This is a 1 in 20-year event. It goes on for 6 years, but everybody else is picking up the load that they're not addressing while they're working on this. So there's a lot of people that don't get to sit at the table and reap in all of the visual glory of being on this pretty drudgeful project. But the whole staff, CRA staff, county council staff, our consultant staffs, all of them, and other people that are not in those organizations that are helping out and pitching in deserve a lot of thanks. And I've said it before, thanks isn't enough. I also want to thank all the people that came out pro and con on this. Your opinion is valued. For those that don't think that the public had adequate time and everything, I will tell you, I've been on this board for 6 years. That's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. But this current CRA and county council staff, they don't understand the importance of public outreach. They internalize the importance of public outreach. I've never seen a public outreach campaign like this. I personally, just in my district, have attended 4 specific examples of public outreach just since the August 27th release for public comment. Prior to that, I have no idea how many public outreach efforts were made on the original EIR and general plan effort 3 years ago. So we've done, I'm confident, more than any other time in the past, certainly more than the last general plan, made a concerted effort to do good, solid, honest public outreach to get public input beyond just publishing it and sticking it on our website, which has also been done, but there has been active public outreach. So I want to thank staff, and I want to thank the people that did come on both sides of the issue. It's unusual that we get the kind of representations on both sides of the issue. Usually people that show up are the people that aren't happy with it, and that's okay. But I want to thank the people that are happy with it for coming out as well. A lot of times it seems one-sided, and so it's good to have a balance of views. And so I appreciate everybody's time. I know this has been a long evening, and for that I'm even more appreciative. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Yeah, real quickly.
Jerry?
So thank you, Supervisor Rutherford, for those comments, because I completely agree. And I really, to just say thank you, staff, it's such an understatement for, what you've taken on. And there is no perfect document, but this is a living document. This is something that is going to have the opportunity to evolve, and we know that. But again, you have just been exemplary in how you have reached out to so many organizations over the last couple of years. If anyone believes for one moment that this is something that has been pushed through in the last 60 or 90 days, they just simply haven't been watching or listening to this board. Every presentation, Quincy, that you made to this board, we asked the public to reach out, and I have had nothing but praise for the level of interaction that staff has had with the public when they've come with a question. We ask them to be specific, bring specific. Just don't say, I don't like something. Say specifically what you don't like, and the effort to address those and work with the different groups. And I think that we have certainly had a testament by all of the groups that stood up tonight and actually voiced their appreciation and support for the plan moving forward. The noise ordinance piece, I heard your explanation. I'm still a little confused because the example that was given to us with the creek going by, again, that's just continual noise. I think that the distinction probably might be amplified noise. And or maybe that's the distinction for me. And there is a difference. And so I'm still struggling with that one a little bit, because I don't want to have an ordinance that everyone is just simply you're breaking a piece in the general plan where we're breaking it by simply having conversation over a period of time, or for our small ag producers, the ability to have these events is important. Being able to have that ability to do some level of diversification often is the difference between staying in business and not being in business. And so what is the implication if it goes to 60 as opposed to 50? Again, I don't want to postpone this. I believe we've been working on this for, it's time to move it on. And is this something that could be revisited?
So what my smart neighbor here was reminding me of is one thing that we mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting, but that might aid in the discussion tonight, was that the noise levels that are identified in the proposed Title 17 changes are for those events which are going to fall into this commercial agritourism category, which has to follow certain numbers, certain sizes, parking, and all this sort of thing. In the agricultural zoning districts, events are a conditional use. And so if there was an operator who felt that they were unable to follow the proposed ordinance changes for whatever reason, they could come through and get a use permit that would be developed and evaluated specifically for that piece of property. So if there was a situation where there was a unique set of circumstances where they were either continually violating the commercial events ordinance or something such as that, there is a pathway to do additional noise analysis for those situations and to draft a unique set of conditions for that project.
Okay.
I still don't.
Additionally, just to, I am not a noise expert, so I would probably look to our environmental consultant. In fact, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say, environmental. Why can you answer this?
One other thing to talk about with noise, and someone raised it earlier, is distance is critical. Noise is energy. So the energy coming out of my mouth that's coming out of the speakers, it sounds loud to us because we're surrounded by speakers. If someone was standing 50 feet away, that noise would be cut a lot. So measured at a property line, noise from a conversation would likely reach very low noise level.
It's reduced by the square of the distance in a planar
Yes,
scenario.
This is a logarithmic reduction. So that's a critical thing to understand. A babbling brook, it could be 60 decibels if you stuck a microphone right up next to it. But as you move away from it, 20, 30 feet away, it's going to be much lower than 60 decibels. So just another thing to consider when we're talking about these noise levels. Am I answering your question? I still see confusion.
Can I
Go ahead.
No. I think we should not mess with this issue right now as far as the sound. I appreciate the concerns and the comments and the discussion about it, but we're getting lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
And I just want to, with the sound issue,
the
trick will come down to enforcement. And that's where the devil's in the detail. How somebody exercises. You can walk around. It's a period over time. Nobody's going to be standing there recording every point on a property line trying to find, I take that back. Somebody will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody shows up to deal with the issue, it's going to be law enforcement or somebody that's going to have to use reasonableness like anything. We have so many ordinances and codes. They're not black and white. They are not, that's not how they work. It's a subjective thing, and we're trying to objectify it. And it is objectifiable. I understand that. But when it comes to enforcement and practicality, it's not. So I'm okay with where the boundary's at. When somebody's being a jerk and they're making too much noise, I want staff to be able to do something about it. When they're not, and a neighbor's just being a pain, and they're just trying to find an excuse to be against something, staff and law enforcement people will sort through those things and they'll deal with it. When it gets really bad, people will sue each other and they'll use that and they'll go down that road and they'll do that either way. But I want to focus. I want our board. This is our last action together, and
And I'm not going to derail it. I'm not. And
Yeah, you are.
Trying.
If I could just point out that this noise level is proposed in your zoning code, and if it causes a problem going forward, you can amend the zoning code.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go.
Yeah,
and the
This would be
enforcement
we
and the
could do-
application of it.
No,
is
that
where
was
you
going to
need
be my
really
next
work it
point,
out.
is that this is zoning, we can go at it with the zoning. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, so
You didn't give me a chance to finish.
I'm sorry.
it's my fault. I couldn't control him. Okay, so
That's all right. You won't need to.
Boy, what a rest. Just a few short comments. We've heard a lot about how the process is being rushed and this. And I want to go back to 1987 when I sat on the Southern Oklahoma County Planning Commission. And we were working on the general plan that we have in place right now. And I'm thinking back at the public outreach. We had, I believe, 2 meetings, joint planning commission meetings of all the number of planning commissions we had at that time here in this room, and discussed the general plan and made recommendations, stuff like that. That was pretty much it on the public outreach. And here we have, I've been chairman of the Board of Supervisors Planning Commission for a number of years, and during the process, I think Mark Banks spoke of 10 meetings that we went through, public meetings where people came and could make comments on all of the wordsmithing that we were doing to try to get through the first document. So I can't buy the idea that we're in a rush here. We've spent a lot of time thinking this through, the Board of Supervisors ad hoc committee and the staff time, the public outreach. As far as I feel, it's pretty much unprecedented as how much we've done to try to get the public engaged in what we're doing with this general plan. So I'm comfortable with it coming to this board. I think we've done our due diligence. It's been mentioned that it's a fluid document, and it is. It can be changed. We do general plan amendments 4 times a year if needed. So I'm not saying it's a perfect document, but I believe it's a really good document. And if there's something there that is not livable, then we can address it at a later time. But we got to get something in place that makes sense. I think this document makes sense. So with that, we're going to take a break. And
About 15 minutes.
is that all you need?
Mm-hmm.
It says 30 here. All right, 15-minute break, and then we'll bring it back.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to explain the handout that I just gave you. This is the revised Exhibit C to your board packet. The changes include the 7 APNs that are going to remain designated ag, and then the revised EIR errata sheet that was given to you at the beginning. So this is the full Exhibit C that would be included as part of the motion. And we did draft a motion for your board should you wish to move forward with this project this evening.
And this includes, as I see, the Oak Woodland
Yes. Yes. Those changes were part of the Planning Commission's motion, which is Exhibit A to your agenda packet, and that is also included in the motion.
All right, so what I'm looking for is a motion.
Supervisor Gray, before I do, I just want to say a couple words.
I figured you probably would.
Yeah. It's my last chance, so. A couple words. Okay.
Make it count.
The first thing I want to say is this is a plan, and I'm a contractor, and I know when it comes to plans, you plan your work and you work your plan, and things always change no matter what. There's always going to be things that are unforeseen, things that are inconsistent, things that they're different. Things change. Everybody knows that's what we are guaranteed is change. And plans change, even the best plans change. And execution of this plan is infinitely more important than the plan itself. And I just want to reflect on this, because where we're at right now, we're transitioning with people on this board. We're transitioning, it feels like, and I think a lot of people would probably agree, just in the air, things feel different, and people are talking about different things. When we started working on this plan, like Randy said, over, 8 years? Something like that. I know it was before our time even. People were working on
It took
the
a while to
background
get
of this.
started.
Yes. So, anyways, I'm babbling. This plan will be implemented by future boards and staff. And it just can't be underestimated how critical that is. This general plan, it's a stack of paper, and it's this, action will come from this. Good will come from this for our community. People's lives will be impacted by this, and it will be impacted by the way that it is executed. Our future is at stake, and what we are doing here affects the lives of Tuolumne County and the people in it. We deal with issues up here that are very serious. Carol, if you think about all the people commit suicide. People live down this street. We could walk down there in a couple minutes, and they're sitting down there in rags next to the creek. There are so many issues this will affect. There are so many hours of work and effort and intent by these people and these people. Years. It is cheap and insulting for people to say it's being rushed. That is ridiculous. I respect your opinions, and I really want to encourage people in the future, when you address this board, be as genuine as possible in what you want. Tell this board what you want. Don't skirt around it. If you don't want development, don't be afraid to say it. Don't talk about deer habitat and all this other stuff. I hunt deer. You find the deer in the rose bushes. I go out. I was joking to John in his ear for a second. If you go out into the deer habitat, you can't find a damn deer, and Dave knows. So things aren't always black and white. Things aren't always what they seem. But I will tell you, this is a plan. And it will guide our future. And the intent and the work that was put into this is filled with goodness. People that care. It's complicated, it's confusing, it's easy to twist it around and try to make it seem like it's bad and something wasn't done. But the people that worked on this, I can't tell you how much I respect their professionalism and their skills. They're way smarter than I am. They're way more, these guys right here are really, really good. This meeting was less contentious than our chicken meeting. It's another joke I was talking about.
Right.
This is a damn general plan that's going to govern this county for decades. And there was hardly any squabbling. I mean, this is incredible. So this is a historic moment. I'm extremely privileged to do this. And with that, I just want to move to approve the general plan update project, including the following. Adopt the resolution to certify the environmental impact report, incorporating the revisions set forth in revision Exhibit C. Adopt findings of fact, the statement of overriding considerations and mitigating monitoring and reporting plan pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt the 2018 Tuolumne County General Plan, incorporating the revisions set forth in Exhibit A and in revised Exhibit C. Approve ordinance to revise Title 17 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code to expand the range of economic activities allowed on agricultural lands and agritourism activities on non-agricultural land, incorporating the revisions set forth in Exhibit A. And just my last words. Tuolumne County is special. And it's not special because of money or power or anything that we all know aren't the most important things. Tuolumne County is made up of the things that when you're on your deathbed, you're proud of. When you're ready to fight for something, you'll step forward. That's what we are. And Sharon, I love Sharon Maravich because she talks about our culture and all this stuff, but it's more than objects. It's more than relics. And I say this, and I've said this so many times, these guys know, John knows. Who we are is our heritage, our personality, our fight, our dignity, our salt of the earth realism. We will protect each other. We will work and solve our own problems, and we are made of goodness. Tuolumne County people are good, and I want that to stay the same.
Thank you, Supervisor Royce. Looking for a second.
Mr. Chairman, it'd be my privilege to second the motion. I will also second Supervisor Royce's comments, and I want to again thank the staff for an incredible job. This is a long path to completion, but this is the start of more work. And I know that, and I know you're up to it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're going to do, too. So I'll second that motion.
All right. We have a first and second.
Just one comment. It's been a privilege, Randy. Yeah. Thank you.
Gonna miss them. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the input. Staff, thank you for a job well done.